recognizing the different cultural expectations when establishing trust, you just change your behavior accordingly. You gain trust in different ways. Yes?
I think you're very smart because in China we always say that 有问题找组织. You get in touch with the senior organization, senior office bureau, 外资委, try to give the power influence to the fire protection bureau.
Yes, because that's their job too. You know, we had another problem with another vendor. We negotiated a deal with Bell South to do all the telecommunications, PBABX, the telephones, all the wiring. They spent $10 million on the project. What happened was that after they were up and running and collecting fees, basically we had a foreign or a U.S. foreign telecommunications company running telecommunications in China, illegal. And so Pt2 comes in, or back then it was called the Pt2, you cannot do, it's illegal. You can't operate. You know, we're the only ones. And so again, we had to go through the circle, but you do it by maintaining friendships, and you don't circumvent people in the process. It's all about changing behaviors. A very simple model, and this can be debated. This actually comes from someone from Harvard. Is the trust equation. Trust equals competency. You've got to show that you can do it, you know how to do it, that you're reliable, that you'll do it on time. You know, hot sweat true. And this is where people will. The third one's intimacy. I like that word, intimacy. It's oops, get ahead of myself. Other people will say caring, and that's what intimacy is. It's really caring. It's not just caring about their interests. It's about caring about them on a personal, on an emotional level. There was a vice mayor in Kansas who was in charge of all infrastructure in Shanghai. We had these really important meetings with Portland. Had a fever, he was sweating, he was sick, and he couldn't touch his food. And during that meeting, I stopped it. And I was very junior on my team compared to Mr. Portman and his son Jack Portman was there. I said, I'm sorry, we can't continue with this banquet the way it is. I'd like to order just a bowl of congee, some ginger, and maybe some jiangcha, some ginger tea with sugar. And the vice mayor did that. He was very thankful. That touched his heart. And later came back and helped us on some other issues like this. So those little personal touches make a big difference. But at the end of the day, you just ask yourself this question: are you a peach or are you a coconut? Are you a peach or are you a coconut? You're what? You're a banana? Banana's yellow on the white side, white on the inside. I met a cross-cultural. She's Chinese, but she's a mango. She's yellow on the outside and yellow on the inside. This is different. This has to do with trust. What's a peach like? Soft, isn't it? Fuzzy. Can you cut into a peach easily? A peach, no, but can you, the fruit?
Yeah.
That's right. You bite into it, it's very juicy, just flows, right? What about a coconut? Hard on the outside. But with a peach, you bite into it, it's very juicy, very soft, but what's inside? The big pit. Coconut, hard on the outside, but once you break through that, you get that soft meat. The liquid just flows. Water, right? When you negotiate with someone, think, is this person a peach or a coconut? Americans tend to be what in terms of trust? Anybody ever sit next to an American on a long air flight, let's say from Shanghai to the United States? They talk, they tell their whole life story, right? Oh my gosh, my daughter's doing this, I got married, and I'm unhappy, and I'm going through a divorce, and I've got this girlfriend here, and I really like you, who are you, what's your name, you're okay. Hey, when we arrive in Los Angeles, we should get together again and do lunch, right? They arrive in LA. Hey, nice to meet you, bye. Typical American, right? Coconuts are different. Coconuts, you have to earn their trust. it's hard to break through. It's hard to break through. You know, in America, we look at New Yorkers more that way, traditionally. But definitely Asian cultures are a bit aloof. Not aloof, you just, okay.
More private and more
a little
defensive.
More private. Americans tend to trust first. And with others, you got to break through. But once you break through that, then they're friends for life. How many coconuts are here? Are you a coconut or a peach? Depends on the context, right? Sometimes you got to switch styles, right? Absolutely.
I have a question.
Yes.
What is a good match for a boss and I mean peach and coconut? What is a good match for a boss and a secretary or clerk?
It's not really a competency model. It's just that if you are a peach, let's say if you're a coconut and you meet a peach, you know, go ahead and listen to their stories, understand where they're coming from, and don't make a judgment. You know, and if you are a peach and you're negotiating with a coconut, or you're trying to develop that relationship, once you break through that core, then don't take advantage of it. Don't take advantage of that. Don't break through that shell just to eat the meat and then that's it. And then you're going to ruin the relationship forever. We did a lot of coconut trust building and building Shanghai Center. A lot of people who stayed on, different people came on the project, didn't continue that. And it hurt relationships long term. You don't forget your friends. Even if they leave positions of power, you don't forget them because other people will see them. 2 weeks ago, I had another dinner with the president of Bank of China, previous president of Bank of China, for all China. And he's 90 years old, close to 90. There's no power there. There was no negotiations. Just a friend of 30 years. And those kinds of relationships are important. After the Shanghai Center opened, the new and I'm not dissing the new management of Shanghai Center because these things happen over time. They didn't invite their old friends back, and they complained about it. And we were there. We negotiated. It was an 18-year project. We negotiated 5 years, and then another 7 years to the project. And now AIG wants to negotiate a further extension to the cooperation period. Chinese don't want to do it. They didn't act like coconuts. It's more involved than that, but that's part of it. And of course, negotiation skills. How much time do we have now?
About 50 minutes.
50 minutes, enough time, because we talked about negotiation all throughout this presentation today. 2 basic approaches to negotiation. You heard of these concepts? Distributive and integrative. Distributive is a very simple concept. When you go to the market, you're ready to buy, you know Dongtailu in Shanghai? Antique market, right? You go to Dongtailu and you say, how much is that pot? And they say 100 renminbi. Then you say what? 10 renminbi. They say what? 80. And then 20 maybe, and then you make a deal.
Then you walk.
And then you walk. And then they chase after you.
My first cross-cultural deal, I was 12 years old, was in Mexico. And I bought a little chess set. And I couldn't speak Spanish. I just said, "Cuánto, how much?" And then he spoke a little bit of English. And I was petrified. Because all I had was like $6 in my pocket. He said $35. So I just silence. Not because it was a negotiation tactic. I really didn't know what to do. He said, "Oh, you're tough. Okay, $30. I was still frozen. "Oh, you're too tough. $20. Finally got down to $10. I still didn't have the money. So I just walked away, like you said. I just walked away. Then he's chasing me. Okay, how much? $6? Deal. That's a distributive. Americans hate to buy used cars. That's a distributive deal. But let's say you walk in, how much is the car? $10,000. Can't afford it. And then the guy says, what can you afford? I said, I can afford $10,000. Well, how much can you afford a month? $500 a month. Oh, okay, we can put you on a payment plan for $12,000 or $13,000 or $15,000 interest. The point is that you can afford to make the payment. Now he's coming up with an integrative solution. So a distributive is win-lose. You're looking at positions. What's your position? What is the question? With integrative, you're looking at why. Why do you want the car? In this parable, why is the orange? These are two chefs fighting over an orange. One chef wants the orange for what? To make orange juice. The other chef wants the orange because he needs the peel to make a cake. Tenpi, to make a cake. Once they realize, why do you want this? What is your interest? Then they were able to say, okay, you take the peel, I'll take the fruit or the juice, and it becomes a win-win. It sounds very simplistic, but people forget to ask why. We did a simulation at the American Chamber, I don't know, a few weeks ago. Similar situation, it's a role play, I don't mind saying. Coconut shells, coconuts grown in Kenya. The Americans wanted the coconuts for coconut bikinis. The Europeans wanted to make coconut cakes. 36 managing directors, executives, higher-ups, they all did the cell simulation. Only 3 of the 36 came up with a win-win. Everybody else came up with a lose-lose. The point is, once you get into a distributive negotiation, other things take place. You think your emotions, you lose.
The need to win.
Inside. What's that?
The need to win.
It's the need to win. It's in our DNA. So there are 4 principles of integrated negotiations. Separate the people from the problem. Don't focus on the person. Do not insult the person. People, negotiators are people first. And we made these early mistakes when we first came to Shanghai. Jack Port, we had a deal with CITIC, the China Investment Trust Company, and Jack Portman just lost his head and yelled, "You don't know anything about real estate finance." That was the end of that relationship. So then we had to go out and start that whole coconut relationship again with Bank of China. It took a long time. Focus on interests rather than positions. Focus on multiple interests. Again, ask why. We came to Shanghai actually 1981, not me, before I came here. I came in 85. In 81, Jack Portman came here to do an architectural agreement and to work with ECITI, which is the East China Architectural Design Institute, to do a design. Once we found out that there were other opportunities, because we were asking about other interests, not just with the Chinese Architectural Institute, but the Chinese government, then we started working on the relationship side, took them to the United States to look at our architectural projects. They said, "My gosh, you can run these and manage these?" I said, "Yeah, we do that too." "Why don't you design it and manage it?" He said, "Okay, we'll do that." "And why don't you finance it?" "We don't have any money." So then after Jack alienated CITIC, we went to the Bank of China. That's when I came. And they said, "Yeah, we'll loan you $15 million. We came up with the budget's a $145 million deal. So we then went with CCIC, which is another company that helped us go out and find 18 other banks. So now we have a $145 million deal. We expanded the pie, which is what integrative negotiation is all about. Then we discovered there was no financing. There was finance for $145 million, but we didn't have a guarantee for the loan. But then it required housing as well, because there was no place for foreigners to live. Hotels, yeah, you can make money, but what about apartments? There were no other apartments. That was an additional $30 million. So we went back to the Bank of China and said, "Can you give us another $30 million? And they said no. So we thought about different interests. And who has $30 million equity? And we knew that AIG wanted to come back to China to sell insurance. American Naval Gojibashi. And so that was their interest. So now we expanded the pie to $175 million. So you keep on looking, focus on interests and not positions. And then you invent options for mutual gain. And again, actually what I just said was a good example of options. When we first came to Shanghai, they said, well, you can do an equity joint venture, but the Chinese side doesn't have the money. So I said, okay, fine, let's do 100% foreign owned venture, but the law didn't exist then. So then we were just kind of brainstorming, well, how can we make this work legally? And then, what kind of arrangements can we do? When we had issues with Bell South, again, we were looking at other options that would become a win-win scenario. And of course, always insist that the agreement be based on objective criteria. That makes sense. Let's do what's right. When you build a building, you're not going to negotiate. Well, we're only going to dig the piles 15 meters deep, or 10 meters deep. It'll save money. No, you got to do it based on international standards. When we negotiated or fair criteria, when we negotiated the lease term, we went for the longest lease term possible, which is 18 years. But we kept an option to extend it on and on, and basically that's what we did. We're about, what time is it now?
5 more minutes.
I'm going to close soon, but what if the other side uses hard bargaining negotiation tactics? And this happens a lot. Do you think Chinese are hard bargainers or cooperative or collaborative, integrated bargainers?
Some surveys, some tables, that's quite soft. But
Right.
when they go back, they will need a kind of collective discussion, and finally, one top manager or top leaders will be reached. So this is a long process.
It is, and a lot of, and it's hard to really generalize. My experience with Chinese negotiators, actually, a lot can be very emotional.
Yeah.
I've seen them pound the table too. Japan, I did not see that.
Never.
The Japanese are very polite. Actually, the Japanese are a good model for collaborative, integrative kind of negotiations. Relationships are important. How can we expand the pie? Boeing, the Dreamliner, worked with the Japanese, and I think the wings or the tails is manufactured in Japan. And then they were able to get a Japanese subsidy to sell to Japan Airlines as well. Think of ways how to expand the pie rather than fight over positions. If you see someone that's using tactics, the one that I saw a lot was kind of Holian Bailian, the good guy, bad guy. That happened a lot in China. When you see that, recognize it. And they don't say, hey, we're doing good guy, bad guys. It's very subtle. How they do it. If you see it and say, oh, you're doing the Holian Bailian thing, and then raise it explicitly, because what will that do? That will diffuse the situation. And then you really want to say, okay, is this really where we want to go? If you have trust, you're not going to get to this point. This is more if you have those negotiations at the early stage. Once you develop that trust, you're going to go right into a collaborative approach. That was my experience. Then, of course, use the 4 principles of integrated negotiations as well, what we just discussed. I'm going to do this very briefly. Assess the situation, identify stakeholders when planning negotiation. Understand more, M-O-R-E, the motives, the objectives, and what's required. A good example is Fiat with Chrysler in the United States. That was 5 years ago, 2009. What were the motives of Fiat at that time? To enter the U.S. market. What was the motive of Chrysler at that time? And at that point, it was actually owned by
Daimler.
Owned by Daimler, but then Cerebus didn't.
Well, that's Cerebus.
Cerebus was a private equity group. Business Europe took it, but Daimler still had assets in that. Their motive was, get me out of this mess, right, in the United States. But look at the motives and the objectives from all sides, because what they did then is that they, of course, there are facts they had to confirm during the negotiation, but then Fiat went to the President of the United States. They went to the United Auto Workers, the labor unions. They went to Congress. All these things became all part of the solution in the bailout. And then, I mean, Fiat didn't want to invest any money. This is our technology, but there was a phased buy-in over time. By assessing all that, by assessing the motives of all sides, of all players, of all stakeholders, they were able to put together an integrated deal. Always walk into a negotiation with an agenda, even though be prepared that the other party may jump around and have a holistic approach. At least have one. And of course, know why you're there to negotiate. What's your desired outcome? If you don't have that, you're going to lose sight because you get caught up in the emotions. In a trading plan, I like this better than use the word concession strategy. Trading means you're going to give up something perhaps, but you're going to get something back in return. Team assignments are important. You have a team, pick them carefully. Make sure you've got the cultural guy there. Make sure you have the engineer. Make sure you have the business person there. And each of them all have to do their thing during the negotiations. And of course, develop your BATNA. You know what a BATNA is? The better alternative to a negotiated agreement. It's your backup plan. If this deal doesn't work, then we've got this deal over here. We had a very weak BATNA when we came here. Our BATNA was where the JC Mandarin. We had that side.
Okay.
So we had this huge, beautiful place on Nanjing Shilu, huge site, a lot of square meters, and our only backup was JC Mandarin. We had to do that deal. But you should have a backup.
But at the same time, just for understanding the other party's BATNA,
Yes.
at the same time, the Shanghainese government then also want to have something to happen as well.
Well, that was now you're getting back to motives.
Yeah, and also their BATNA as well.
Yeah, the Chinese government really wanted to do the deal. Our partners changed, but we knew, and we would use that card all throughout the construction period. We knew that the Chinese government wanted to attract further investments. As a matter of fact, in 1989, we were not quite finished with construction. There were some political disturbances in Beijing. I won't go into detail, but that affected the foreign investment climate in China. So because of that, we wanted to work with the Chinese to attract further investment, and that's when we set up the Mayor Advisory Committee with Zhu Ji. Yeah, we started that. But we used the cloud of AIG because they were one of the major investors. But you have to know what CJ said. What's the BATNA of the other side, and also when you look at multilateral interests, what's the backup for the Chinese? And the Chinese wanted to see, the government wanted to see this succeed as well. But having a BATNA gives you what? Having a backup plan gives you what? Let's say you're negotiating a salary, you're in HR, and a person wants to negotiate a salary with you, wants a higher salary. That's tough. But if that person already has a job offer, and that person negotiates with you, it gives him more what? More
Bargaining
confidence, more power. But a BATNA means it has to be a better alternative. So it's just a higher paying job, but maybe a lousy job. That's not really a good BATNA, is it? It's an option. So you have to understand your BATNA and the other sides. Because you're right, it gives you power, it gives you self-confidence. Here's a guy being stretched on the right. Hey, he says he has a better deal waiting on the other side. That's optimism. I'm not going to go into this. This is just a framework for global negotiations. If you want a copy of the PowerPoint, we'll send it to you. Okay? And these are additional cross-cultural characteristics. I think we saw an example with Terry, the construction manager, when you're negotiating. Have an active listenability. You got to know what's being said. Also, you have to watch what's being done. Be alert.
You can also listen to what is not said.
And yes, yes, listen to what's not said, but to observe what's not said. And then have good questioning skills. You have to be able to paraphrase, to clarify, to confirm. And if you have a team, use your team. Listen to the other people on your negotiation team. Self-confidence. When you go into a negotiation room, you have to have self-confidence, and you have to have a high aspirations level. If you wish for the most, you will get it. Studies have been done. So don't go for something lower, go for something even higher. That will affect the whole negotiation. Westerners tend to negotiate deals, and sometimes you have to go back home and sell them. Look at what I did. And unlike in Japan, you have more consensus decision making. In the United States, you say, hey, go do that deal, and don't come home until you've got the deal. So then you're making this deal, and now all of a sudden you've got to perform, which is kind of what we did. We negotiated a contract, and I was the oldest person on the negotiation team, and I was 30. We had a 29-year-old and a 28-year-old. And we came to terms with the Chinese government, our Chinese partner as well as the government, as they looked at it. We sent it to the United States. The lawyers looked at it and said, no. They rewrote it. Now it was really thick, redlined it, lots of stipulations. We looked at it and we made a decision. What's that?
No use that.
We threw it away. We didn't even show it to the Chinese. And we got the deal. And because we didn't care, because we knew we were going to renegotiate the contract anyway. And we renegotiated that contract 4 times. And it wasn't the Chinese that renegotiated, it was us. Language skills. You don't have to speak the other language, but on your team, make sure you've got someone who does. It's common sense. Make sure you've got a translator, someone you trust. And that's it. Basically what we talked about today were those 4 key skills. It's important to be culturally aware of yourself and of others, but that's not enough. You have to be able to use a global mindset. You need to code switch to, once you determine what those differences are, you need to manage that complexity. And the whole purpose, of course, is to build trust and relationships. And once you have a trusting relationship, that will really help you in your integrated negotiation skills. And so that is the end. And this is a very integrative statement by APJ Abdul Kalam, former president of India. It's very easy to defeat someone, but it's very hard to win someone. And that's the purpose behind integrated negotiations. Thank you so much. Any